Hi, it's Sheridan Webb here from the Training Designers Club, which is the place to go for practical L&D support, especially if you're a lone L&D professional. And today I'm attempting to answer a very large question. And that question is, I need to design an induction program. What's the best way to go about it? Now, back in the day when I was a more traditional consultant, induction programs were one of my very favourite things to design. I absolutely loved it. So I've got lots and lots of advice that I can share. I'll try and keep it brief, but I will say that if you go to the Training Designers Club website, there is a downloadable guide to induction that will cover everything that I might forget to say on this short video. So the first thing when we're thinking about induction is to start before they do. What we have to remember is changing jobs is a significant event, and particularly if you've handed in your notice from a job that you were doing quite well, it can feel quite scary. So yes, we get all excited, we're going to move to a new position, but then of course it's highly likely that buyer's remorse will set in. We start to wonder, have I done the right thing? Or what? And when you hand your notice in, your current employer might try and tempt you to stay. So it's a really good idea if we can start to engage with new starters before they actually start. A lot of companies will do this by sending out welcome packs, particularly if you sell products. So putting some products in there to make them feel a part of the team, sending out the company newsletter, inviting them to social events even before they've started are all nice things that you can do. Now, I do know if you're dealing with more labour intensive roles, so maybe shop floor workers, factory workers, they may not want to engage before they start. They may not have the technology or the inclination, but we can still make contact before they start. We can still let them know that we're thinking of them and keep them involved with things that are going on. So that's the first thing, start before they do. The second thing is to think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Now, I know it's old, but I think that provides a really, really good foundation for your induction program. Because if we think about Maslow, the first level is about those basic physical needs. Now, we have to assume that if someone is joining your organization, that the pay is going to be right, the conditions are going to be right. We have to kind of assume that they have decided that those basic needs will be met. So what the induction needs to focus on, I think, is the next three levels. We have to think about their safety, we have to think about their belongingness, and is that a word? How they belong? And we have to think about their esteem. So safety obviously is important in any induction, but we don't need to go through absolutely every health and safety policy on day one. People need to be safe at work. They need to know how to work safely. So cover those really important things and cover them early on. We can cover the other things, the less likely things that are going to happen over the coming days and weeks. We also need to pay attention to how well they feel that their social needs are being met and how well their belonging needs are being met. There is nothing worse than starting a new job and finding that there's no desk, there's no computer, there's no PPE for you, the basic things that you need to do your job. And even worse than that, there's nobody to meet you on day one. Your line manager is in a meeting all day or has taken the day off, they're on holiday, and nobody's really expecting you. So that's a really fundamental thing that we need to sort out. Make sure that the business is ready to receive a new starter. Make sure that the team is ready to receive the new starter, and make them feel like everybody wants them to be there, like they're really going to be joining a fantastic team. And that's just on day one. There's lots of other things that we can do to help that person integrate into the organisation over the coming days, weeks, and even months if necessary. The esteem needs, I think, come from feeling that you're adding value from a very early stage. We want to come to work and we want to make a contribution. So giving somebody something useful to do on their very first day, I think, is incredibly important. You don't want to sit around just listening to presentations or feeling like a spare part and getting in everybody's way. People come to work to be useful, so make sure there's things for them to do. So that's Maslow. But how do we decide what to put into our induction program? Well, I think it's really important that we remember that the purpose of the induction program is to make somebody basically competent in core aspects of their job. So that's basically competent in the core aspects. They're not going to be brilliant at absolutely everything that their job is going to throw at them. So it's really important that we understand what those core aspects are, and it's going to be different for every role. So yes, there are some things that people need to know about that are general to the business, but a lot of induction is going to be role specific. And linked to this is the fact that we need to put ourselves in that new starter's shoes. I'm sure understanding your history and your values is important, but does it really need to be covered on day one? Because I don't think it does. I don't think it's important to that new starter. What they want to know is where do they get their lunch? How do they stay safe at work? Who are they reporting to? How do they access the things that they need to access to do their job? So it's tempting sometimes to put all of this big company stuff in day one, but think, is that really adding any value? Yes, it's interesting to know, and if we want somebody to integrate and demonstrate our values and absorb the culture, we do need to cover it, but really and truly, we don't need to cover it on day one. In fact, I think day one should be kept as minimal as possible. Yes, we need to cover the core health and safety. Yes, people need to have a job induction, but then they need to meet their team. They need to get to know what's involved with doing their job. So linking back to Maslow, one of the key things is about this feeling of belonging, which is why I feel that a lot of the induction program should be run as a team effort. It's not about putting people in a room, or even worse, making them click through endless e-learning. Sitting at a desk going click, click, click is not going to set somebody off on the right footing any more than it's going to be putting them in a training room and having 6 different people come in and talk at them for an hour each. They are not going to remember any of it, and they're not going to do anything with it either. So let's make the induction program really interactive. Let's make sure that we get lots and lots of people involved in it. So the line manager should be there to meet and greet, but then maybe HR do come in and go through payroll and all the key policies and procedures and get all the paperwork set up so that they can be paid, and so that all the relative forms, the employment law stuff, can be taken care of. Managers, however, do need to have guidance, and it's not necessarily just a tick list. They need to understand exactly what it is they need to be showing people and who they need to be setting up meetings with and providing that guidance for them. When I've designed induction programs before, I would have a manager's guide and an employee's guide, and within that there would be checklists so that people knew exactly what they needed to do. It was very detailed as to the types of things that they should be telling their new starter. Make sure you show them this part of the system. Help them learn how to input a new client, for example, so they can do something useful on day one. It's also important to recognise that the manager with the best will in the world isn't going to be able to dedicate their time fully to the new starter. So having lots of independent exercises that they can do will help to keep them busy when the manager has to deal with other things. And again, I'm not just talking about e-learning, although that might be a part of it. It's about giving them specific tasks to do. It's about giving them the autonomy to go out and set up meetings with various people. During your job, you're going to have to make connections with people in these departments. Ask your manager for the contact details and go and arrange meetings with them. So there's lots and lots of things that we can do to help people settle into their new role quickly. We need to have timescales on this. We need to have sign-off criteria so that we know when somebody has done it, because the other thing that the induction needs to do is have a definite end point. because HR will tell you that we need to sign people off and say, yep, they have passed their probationary period. They are now one of the team, and we can start using our performance management systems with that person when we wouldn't do it while they were under their induction. So during that induction process, we have lots of induction specific activities, and we'll do a lot of those in the first few days and maybe week or two. And we will have some job specific activities. And the way I see it is they are a continuum. So on day one, you're going to be doing mostly induction activities with maybe just a little bit of actual work. At the end of week one, we're going to be doing maybe 50-50, depending on the job. And then by the end of the induction period, we're going to have finished all of those induction activities, and we're going to be doing 95% of actual work. So it sort of tails off between the induction activities and the actually getting work done. So lots and lots to think about. And of course, managers need to be trained how to induct somebody as well. It's not just a case of saying, do this, do that, do the other. They need to have basic coaching conversations. They need to know how to brief team members. If team members are going to be expected to show them how to do things, maybe those team members need to learn how to do on-the-job training. So there's an awful lot that we need to think about when we are designing an induction program. And I'm very conscious of time. I say it's one of my topics that I absolutely love talking about. So do get that downloadable guide. But remember that managers need inducting too, and not just managers who are new to your organisation, managers who have been promoted from within. Because there's a big assumption, I think, that promoting somebody from within means they know exactly what to do. Now, it's true, they're going to know where things are, where the forms are, they're going to know the culture, they're going to know the process, but they don't necessarily know what the demands of that job is, what's expected of them, and more importantly, what they need to drop. So never make assumptions that your new manager knows what it means to be a manager in your organisation, because they've never been one before. So I'm going to stop there because I could literally talk for an hour on this. But there are some ideas as to how you can put together a really cracking induction program. Do download the free guide from the Training Designers Club website. And if you want help putting your induction program together, as you might want help with any aspect of training design, come along and be a VIP member of the Training Designers Club, because you are going to be surrounded by helpful, experienced L&D professionals who are more than happy to help.